Hello friends, good afternoon and welcome to Reset Live Lectures. Dear friends, as you know that you have started a series on philosophy of mind, and today we are conducting yet another lecture in the same series. In today's lecture we will be talking about what is behaviorism. In that we will look at certain theoretical developments which have shaped the study of mind. To discuss this topic we have with us our subject expert Dr. Ajay Verma. Dr. Verma is Associate Professor in Center for Philosophy, School of Social Sciences, JNU. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Sir to our studios and request him to start the lecture. Welcome, Sir.
Thank you, Amrit. Hello viewers. So as you're already aware, we have been talking about philosophy of mind in past few lectures, and under the purview of that, we have already looked at certain conceptual issues, and under that we have already studied. We have already looked at one of the core ideas, one of the initial ideas which got a lot of currency early on, namely substance dualism. And we already know that there were a lot of deficiencies, there were a lot of philosophical deficiencies, so to speak, in this idea of substance dualism, where we believe that that there are two different kinds of substances. There are physical things around us, and our body is physical in nature, and under substance dualism we believe that mind and body, which is supposed to reside somewhere inside us, is a separate substance altogether. So thinking happens because of an entirely different reason. Its cause is entirely different. It originates in a very different kind of substance. Namely res cogitans, and all that is physical in nature, including our body, originates from and is of the nature of another kind of substance, which we call res extensa. So in substance dualism, the idea is that mind and body are entirely two different kind of substance. And then several arguments are offered to put forth the idea that there is some kind of interaction that happens, that is possible, that becomes possible between these two different kinds of substances. But as we are already aware that this idea seemed to be infested with sort of loss of philosophical deficiencies, and though it was very much in keeping with, it was conducive to certain kind of religious ideas, like transmigration of soul and so on and so forth, because if soul or mind is a separate substance, then the changes in the physical embodiment of what accompanies the soul are not ultimately going to have an effect on its core nature. So soul, in that case, would remain unaffected by any physical changes. So overall, this idea was very much in keeping with some of the religious sentiments, some of the religious ideas that existed for a long time. And we are already aware that philosophy, as a discipline, took quite some time, after Greek and Roman philosophy. It took several centuries to become an independent discipline, independent, from theology. So it declared itself as a separate discipline. As a matter of fact, and Descartes was, could be considered as an important milestone here. So the point is that substance dualism, though were very much in keeping with some of the religious ideas, had its own set of deficiencies. And another, if we look at sort of other factors that were prevalent around the time, we also see that 1600 onwards, 17th century onwards, there's a rapid advancement in sciences. So earlier than that, as we already know, most the ideas, whichever discipline they may belong to, had to be in keeping with Christianity. So whatever you may have to say, whatever you may want to say about heavenly bodies, whatever you may want to say about the inner feelings, what goes on inside our mind, what animates our body, any ideas pertaining to these themes, to these topics, to these questions, had to be in perfect harmony, had to be in consonance with the ideas put forth in Bible. So it was not until 16th century that disciplines, other different ideas, different kinds of study, different kinds of themes started becoming an independent subject matter of study. So, say for example, around 16th century, around the time when we have thinkers like Galileo and Bruno and several others. We find that there is a certain independence from the religious ideas that we find in these thinkers. So Galileo tells us that probably Earth is not the center of the universe, and is suggested by the telescope that by the observations that he made through the telescope that he had invented, that he had devised. So around 1600 or 17th century, we find certain developments in our knowledge about the world at large, especially our knowledge, our beliefs about the heavenly bodies. So 17th century. Basically, we find a rapid advancement in the area of what we now call physics, which includes sort of nature of physical things, and heavenly bodies, and so on and so forth. In 17th century, we find sort of rapid advancement in the study of what sort of came to be known as elements. So we have what we call the sort of rise and rapid advancement in the area of what we today call chemistry. So there are different elements which constitute which go on into the composition of particular things, and chemist wanted to study the nature of these chemicals, these elements. some of them, being gases, some of them being liquids, some of them being solids, metals, and so on and so forth. So the idea was that all these elements, all these gases, all the different kind of chemicals have a nature of their own, and once we know this, once we know their nature, we can understand why, given the composition of a particular object, why it behaves in certain ways. So we have now a fairly good understanding of composition, of a particular object, which explains to us why it has a particular kind of nature, why it behaves in certain ways, in certain situations. And then then in 18th century, in 1700s. We find some of the revolutionary ideas being brought forth regarding the nature of organisms as such. So different organisms that exist in nature, they show a absolutely vast variety about themselves. And also, we should remember that this was around the time when a lot of people, especially in Europe, were setting out, into the seas to explore, the world around them. It was happening in a very rapid way. People were going to far distant places, especially using ships. Because the Turks, had domination over the land route towards the east. So around that time there was a rapid increase. Some of these travelers, brought sketches with them, which depicted different animals. They had strange, kind of reports, to give back after they would return to their countries, because they would have observed a variety of animals in different continents that they would have visited. So the natural question was, how come there are certain similarities? Also, there is such a vast variety in different kind of organisms that we find in nature, including trees, including different kind of animals. So we have some very interesting, informative ideas, originating around that time. Especially in that line, we could remember Darwin, his idea of survival of the fittest, and how this affects the path of evolution, the evolutionary process. So he gives us this important idea that there are certain factors that lead to certain kind of changes in organism, and it's a very dynamic process. Because the earlier idea in Aristotle's time was that things have forms, things have some kind of essence about themselves, and like gives birth to like. So horses are horses, tigers are tigers, and so on and so forth. And they don't, the main idea was that they belong to an unchanging form. So like a change, was not something to be entertained with some kind of respect. So in Darwin, we find some of the very very interesting explanation regarding why changes occur, what influences those changes, and it was observable that there's a lot of dynamism that is very much visible, that stands to observation around us. All these animals, the way they are in present, they must have a history to them, and also the study of fossils and so on and so forth gave us some important clues to us regarding how sort of evolution becomes possible, and let's not forget not long after, we have also the science of genetics, originating and starting to take shape. Mendel gives some important laws regarding the nature of things, why things grow to be what they are, what they essentially are. So the point here is that there was a rapid rise and development in scientific ideas, and many subjects were carving out kind of a niche for themselves. And they were developing, on to become independent disciplines in themselves, like physics, like chemistry, like biology, and so on and so forth. In that line, and also let's not forget that after as we've been often talking about it, that after Enlightenment, the dominant methodology that was being used to put forth ideas was scientific methodology, scientific method, as a part of which we were supposed to have a direct observation of things, and after that we could come up with certain hypotheses, and then if we test them on the basis of logic and logical coherence and so on and so forth, we must have a sort of logically coherent explanation, provable, justified kind of an explanation of the ideas that we are proposing. So, scientific methodology was, the main way in which ideas, were taking shape and ideas were advancing in different domains, of study, and because of that, certain themes, certain kind of studies were developing themselves as independent disciplines. So now in 20th century, the focus of study, of course, including all these three dominant areas in science. Also, there was another area of study that started emerging, especially in Freud. Freud writes some of his early works in the very starting of 20th century. His first work is, as a matter of fact, published in 1900. So around that time there was a new area of study that had started emerging, namely what we call today psychology, and there the idea was why we think in particular ways, why it so happens that we have certain ideas in our mind. Earlier we always thought that ideas exist inside us, and since they exist inside us, we have control over them. We have control over what we think because it's we who are thinking. So there is no way that we could think involuntarily. We would think otherwise than we want to think. So earlier the idea was that we have complete control on our minds, and therefore we have complete control over what goes on inside our minds. But Freud, gives us a theory according to which is in a certain way is still under the influence of so to speak, a certain in a certain sense, it was influenced by certain preceding incidents in biology. So Freud tells us that ideas, of course, are not so much in our control, and we have all kinds of there are people who have all kinds of problems precisely because they don't have control over what exists inside their mind. They don't have control over the particular thoughts that arise in their mind, and which causes them trouble, because those ideas originate involuntarily. They are not in the control of the person inside whose mind those thoughts are occurring. And so there, if we want to know the cause of it, then there could be several ways of looking at it. One could be to look for environmental factors, what that person might have gone through at a certain at certain moment in time, at certain at particular period in time. And one way of looking at it could be believing that there could be certain incidents, there could be certain certain things that happened in the past which led to a particular kind of thought process. And Freud, of course, gives a very complex kind of theory about that we have certain instincts inside us which originate biologically, and there is an evolutionary purpose to them, which includes certain which not only includes, as a matter of fact, the core of which is certain libidinal energies that are always operating in us, that are always animating us, and the purpose of these instincts, these energies, is procreation, which it has a certain evolutionary aim, and since it has a psychological component to it, all instincts belong to in a certain way to the domain of mind. And many of these instincts are not completely in our control. Therefore, not everything that exists in our mind is in our control. So it's something that we start realizing. And these instincts, though they do not have, they do not make an appearance inside our mind as a full-fledged thought, nevertheless, these are certain, energies which influence the way we think and make our thinking patterns in a certain way involuntary. Eventually have an effect, have an impact on our, so to speak, conscious parts, conscious thought processes in our mind. But Freudian theories also, lacked a particular kind of scientific rigor that was demanded, in 20th century, which was that whatever hypothesis we may have, whatever ideas we may want to propound, whatever explanations we may want to put forth, we must have some kind of empirical evidence for that. We must be able to prove it through some kind of empirical evidence. But now, mind is a peculiar case in that direction, and thought processes in mind are of such nature that we cannot observe them. or if at all, the only person who can observe it is the person who is having them. So, the overall problem here is that scientific study of anything demands that we observe. We have, an observable access to the thing in question, to the object in question, and we observe that thing, and then after observation, we would find certain correlations, certain patterns emerging, and on the basis of that, we could put forward an explanation which would have certain kind of logical rigor, which would have certain kind of justification about itself. So that kind of justification was somehow not possible in the case of mind, in the case of study of mind, which Freud was doing. And Freud, was talking about some kind of nether regions of our mind, for which he did not have any empirical evidence, and it was though sort of his explanations seemed to be quite interesting, and those explanations seemed to provide solution for people who were having certain psychological problems. But it lacked the kind of rigor, as I said, which was demanded of explanations around that time. So after that, psychology, under the influence of science, starts developing, starts taking a kind of a new turn, where we want to have some kind of empirical evidence for what we suggest. So now after Freud, many psychologists, including Skinner, including Pavlov, several others, started looking at mind in terms of stimulus and response. The same kind of cause and effect correlation that scientific study of anything demands. So the overall idea here was that whatever we think, first of all, what are we studying in psychology? We are studying mental happenings. We want to study what's going on inside the mind. We are considering, we want to take into consideration and study mental events. Now, these events, are not observable because they are inside our mind. They are, they are only accessible by the person who's having them, and they do not have any third person access. But scientific study demands some kind of cause and effect, kind of correlation among things. So these new set of psychologists, wanted to suggest some kind of, cause and effect relationship between what we think. So according to them, whatever idea we may have inside our mind, whatever thought that we may have inside our mind at any given moment, is a result of a particular stimulus that may be present in the there and now, or that might have occurred sometime in the past. So if somebody behaves in a certain way, then there must have been some kind of environmental causes, some kind of stimulus, which must have shaped a certain kind of thought, and in turn certain kind of behavior. So friends, we will continue our discussion on behaviorism. We will return after a short break. Thank you. So we were talking about the rise of behaviorism, and we were trying to kind of set a stage for that, and we wanted to look back into history. Why first of all philosophy of mind? What are the demands that the study of mind had upon it, and how those particular kind of demands about the study of mind had to be met. So in that line, we saw how when we are talking about mind, there are certain peculiarities that arise. There are certain kind of problems. There are certain kind of issues that arise. There are certain kind of methodological issues that arise. On the one hand, scientific method was the touchstone on the basis of which we would justify some kind of an idea as a proper piece of knowledge, and then everything else would count as either hypothesis or belief. So a scientific method was an important touchstone, which would lend credibility to whatever ideas that we may want to propose regarding certain subject matter. So here, something that was peculiar about the study of mind, as I just said, was that the mental events are closed for observation, except for the person who is having them. And if we go by what Freud said, even that is not true, because there are mental events which are happening without even the person who's having them realizing it. So if we go by what Freud was proposing, then mental events at times and important mental events don't lend themselves to observation of even the person who's having them. So the peculiarity about mental events was that we don't see them. We cannot see them. So since we cannot see them, we'll have to devise a way of theorizing about them. So Freud theorized about them in a particular way, in a certain way, but his theorization did not fit well, with the scientific method, and therefore, scientists particularly, didn't find it, very, very credible, though it seemed to work to a good extent, though present-day psychology, practiced psychology, there is clinical psychology, does not work much on the basis of Freud. So Freud is more or less passé when it comes to clinical psychology. But that thing aside, what we are talking about here is that mental events have a peculiarity about themselves, and to make the study of mind comply with the demands of scientific method, we'll have to a little bit more appropriate for us to look at the environmental factors that lead to a particular kind of belief system that shapes itself inside the mind of a person, and which gets manifested in the behavior of a person. So it becomes a kind of a three-cornered kind of stage, three-cornered kind of study for us. on the one hand, since we believe that everything has a cause, so mental events, whatever kind of mental events those may be, like happiness, like fear, like anxiety, like sadness, like whatever. So all these events have certain causes, because everything has a cause, and those causes have to exist in the environment, so they are observable. And when we have particular mental events, they also, though of course these mental events are obscured from us, but they have a particular way of manifesting themselves, and they are manifested in our behavior. So when we are happy, we behave in a particular way. When we are sad, we behave in a particular way. This is why people, when you are sad, people around you start asking you, like they would know that you're looking sad. So being sad has a component of looking so and so. Similarly, being happy has a counterpart in behavior. Being happy means looking like so and so, and so on and so forth. So on the one hand, we have certain causes for certain mental events, if we fear. If we have fear of heights, if something must have happened in the past because of which we have that fear. If we are afraid of, say for example, cats, it's said about Napoleon that he was such a big warrior, but it's said about Napoleon that he used to be afraid of cats. So such behavior could be explained in terms of something that might have happened sometime in the past. So these thinkers were trying to make psychology in some way compatible, or the study of mind, to like in some way they were trying to make it compatible with the demands of science. And this was one of the ways of going about it, that there are some environmental factors that you need to take into consideration, and then there are and then we need to study the behavior of a person, because the mental events are manifested in our behavior. So broadly, this way of looking, this way of studying mind, eventually came to be known as behaviorism. So one of the fundamental presuppositions, this is very, very broadly defined. We'll talk about the different kinds of behaviorism in a short while. But the dominant idea here is that we can study mind employing scientific method, just the way we use it in some other disciplines like biology, chemistry, physics, and so on and so forth. Similarly, psychology would qualify as one of the sciences. Because here we want to study mind as our own mental events, rather, as having a cause which lies in the environment, which is observable, and in turn these mental events lead to certain kind of manifestation in our behavior, which could also be studied, which also lends itself to empirical observation by us. So there are these two, so this is a three-cornered kind of a situation, and out of these three corners, two corners lend themselves to empirical observations, meaning including environmental factors, environmental causes of particular mental events, and the effects of these mental events in our behavior. So this was, one of the fundamental presuppositions of this was the main model around which, behaviorism as a way of studying mind took shape and developed. Now, having understood that, let's talk about how behaviorism started sort of taking shape in different ways, and behaviorism as an idea also has its own types, its own kinds, which includes methodological behaviorism. There is also something known as psychological behaviorism, and there is also something called logical behaviorism, or another term for that is philosophical behaviorism. So now, in methodological behaviorism, the main issue at stake is what should be the object of study. When we are talking about the study of mind, what exactly is the object of study? As we just talked about it, we want to study mind, which means mental events, a set of mental events, processes that are happening inside the mind. But as we just finished talking about it, these events are don't lend themselves to observation except for the person who has them. So therefore, we cannot include we cannot consider these mental events as the main object of study. So because that's simply not possible. That's simply not possible for us. So then in that case, what should be the object of study? So according to methodological behaviorist, what we should be studying is the behavior of a person and looking for its environmental causes. So say for example, as we just said, if we look at many of our say for that matter. Many of our proverbs, they suggest this kind of thought. Say, for example, we say that burnt child dreads fire. So basically, the idea is that if you know what like the sensation of getting a burn somewhere is, then you would always develop some kind of fear of hot objects, of fire generally. So the idea here is that if a person is fearing an object, is fearing fire, then there is a cause of that. So similarly, if certain kind of things we find sort of pleasurable, there must have been some kind of environmental correlate, to that. And so on and so forth. So fear, sadness, happiness, different kinds of mental events could be explained by making behavior the object of our study. So here the methodological behaviorist wants to take into consideration the more the methodological issues, like what is the object of observation when it comes to the study of mind, because mental events cannot be those objects of observation, because it's impossible to observe them. Now, in psychological behaviorism, the issue turns from the object to the best explanation that we could offer. So here the idea is that whenever we see a particular kind of behavior, how could it be best explained, keeping in mind the demand of scientific method? So the idea overall here is trying to find the best explanation, and the idea according to psychological behaviorists is that for certain kind of behaviors, certain kind of behaviors are best explained if we investigate into the environmental causes of them. So here the idea is not, what is at stake is not the object of observation, but what would best explain. And of course, an important presupposition here is that we want to, conflate any talk of, any talk of mind, any talk about mind with the behavior. Or for that matter, we want to conflate, we want to equivocate any talk of mental events with certain behavior that is supposed to be associated with it, that is supposed to be correlate. Under that scheme of things, pain is nothing but a certain kind of behavior. When a particular person behaves in a particular way, we can say, well, that person has pain, is having pain, and it must have certain causes. So when we say a person has fear, what we are saying is that a person behaves in a particular way when that person confronts certain things. So, say for example, if you have fear of snakes, then what it would mean is that when you see a snake, you show a particular kind of behavior. So fear here and under behaviorism is nothing but a particular kind of behavior. So when you come across a particular kind of animal, you run away, you shriek, you are petrified, you don't know what to do. So any of these behaviors would count as fear. So, but in what we want to look at here is that in psychological behaviorism, the issue at stake is the best explanation. Now, when we talk about what we call logical behaviorism or philosophical behaviorism, what is at stake is the meaning of the term. As we already know, in the beginning of 20th century, just around the time when psychology was shaping itself up as an independent discipline, in Anglo-Saxon tradition, we find a dominant influence of what we call of study of language, what we also call today as linguistic turn in philosophy. So most the philosophers around that time wanted to look at language, the meaning. They wanted to have a very clear notion of what constitutes the meaning of something. And there was a lot of emphasis upon that, and we also know that the basic idea was that several things that we talk about, especially in philosophy, and since as we sort of just talked about it, that philosophy had declared itself independent from theology. So in theology we were talking about several things that do not seem to have any empirical counterpart. So we were not sure about what exactly we mean when we use certain terms. So say for example soul. Whenever we use this term soul, we seem to understand something, but nobody has seen soul. There is no empirical evidence to suggest it. As a matter of fact, there were several scientific experiments that were conducted. to see if there could be anything like that, if there is anything observable like that, but there was nothing that came forth as empirical evidence. So there are supposed to be several terms in our language which seem to be apparently which are seemingly meaningful, but on closer examination we find that these terms are meaningless because they do not have any reference point. They do not have any reference. They do not suggest anything that exists out there that makes itself felt in our experience, that lends itself to our experience. So overall idea in linguistic, in sort of in emerging idea in philosophy was to glean out meaningful from meaningless, to thresh out the meaningless from the meaningful, and some criteria need to be devised in order to do that. So if we want to separate what would count as meaningless from the meaningful, we must have some kind of criteria for doing that. And one such criteria, we are already aware, is put forth by a set of philosophers, most of who were actually scientists, who later on came to be called logical positivists. These were a group of scientists interacting with each other in Vienna. So many of them belong to Vienna Circle, what later on came to be known as Vienna Circle. So these scientists were pretty much bothered about a lot of meaningless things that we talk about, and how philosopher impinge upon the domain of science, and how philosopher say strange things about certain things which they believed require a very different kind of study, and philosophers on the other hand were talking about certain themes without following a particular kind of methodology, and without sort of making the criteria of what should count as meaningless and what should count as meaningful, without sort of having a full formed criteria about that. So logical positivists came up with this idea that only those terms would count as meaningful for which we know what are the material conditions for them to be true. So say for example there are certain sentences which are true in virtue of their definition, in virtue of their very meaning. So the sort of the classical example in that context is bachelors are unmarried men. So the meaning of bachelor is an unmarried man. It is by definition. It's the stipulated definition of the term bachelor. So there are certain sentences which are true in virtue of the meaning of the term. And such sentences are, we know are tautological because they don't tell us anything new. So there are either these kind of sentences, which have meaning, in virtue of, their stipulated definition. On the other hand, we have certain other kind of sentences which require, certain kind of observation in order for them to be deemed as true. So, say for example, if I say that it's getting cloudy outside, or it's raining outside. In order to know the truth conditions, in order to know whether this statement is true or not, would require certain conditions to be specified under which this sentence would be true, and if those conditions don't obtain, then this sentence would be false. So obviously we know what those conditions are. So if somebody says that it's raining outside, and if I'm sitting in a room which has all the closed windows, what are the material conditions under which this statement would be true? These material conditions would be that when I go out of that room, I must observe, certain sort of droplets, drops of water, falling, coming, from somewhere from the deep skies and falling upon us. So we know the material conditions for it to be true, which would constitute, as a matter of fact, these material conditions would constitute the meaning of this sentence. So this was a criteria that was laid down by these group of thinkers. Now, similarly, if we put the same demand upon the study of mind, then the idea would be that there are several terms that we use about mind, like being in pain, like several mental events, like being happy, like being sad, and so on and so forth. So now under the demand of philosophical behaviorism or logical behaviorism, we must define the material conditions. There's something that we understand by the term, say for example, fear. So now whenever we use this term, first of all, a term to be meaningful must have a referent. So, for example, when I say chair, I know what is the object that is referred to by the term chair. There is this object outside of our mind, and we know when I use the term chair, this is what I mean. But it becomes problematic when we when we talk about the sphere of mind, sphere of the mental events, because we do not have the same kind of physical object being referred to like in the case of physical objects. So there under the demand of logical positivism, we wanted to know the meaning, which was not sort of construable through any referent. So it meant whenever we are talking about pain, say for example, we must make clear the material conditions under which we could know that somebody is in pain, and those material conditions, according to philosophical behaviorists, would be certain kind of behavior. So here, the question is not that of explanation, not that of object of study, like in methodological behaviorism, but the question is that of meaning. What is the meaning, that we generally seem to ascribe to some of these mental events, which do not have a physical object being referred to. So friends, today we talked about behaviorism. We talked about how behaviorism as a certain theory develops. What was the context in which it develops. So in our next lecture, we'll continue with our same discussion, and we'll talk further about it. Thank you.
Dear friends, due to paucity of time, we have to stop our lecture here. On that note, we would like to thank Dr. Verma for coming to our show and led this wonderful lecture. And thank you, dear friends, for listening to our lecture. Stay tuned and keep watching. Thank you.